Saturday night's audio cast, twitter.com Jamestown Caliph, twitter.com Hannity May 22. I'd like to thank you all for listening. I am going to do a brand new show called Republican Strategy. Jameson Republican Strategy. JRS. The purpose of this show is going to talk about the emergence of the former president Donald Trump wanting to take the credit or not take the credit for his returning to the field of Republicans running for president in 2024. Now, I did a podcast or an audio cast on YouTube yesterday, and it was titled How Everyone is Straight Up Selfish. And because of selfish, that's why we're in recession. There's no other reason. It's the economy works one way, and then the selfish and giving work the other way. And it's a combination of the two. It's not just one, it's selfish. Specifically, people that are doing very well and that have nothing else better to do, just doing nothing versus going out and helping and serving and protecting people while they're doing well. And what that means is opening up new shops and opportunities for others to be employed under you. That's my first topic. My second topic is the former president right now was on Clay Travis, not Randy Travis, but Clay Travis, Outkick. Outkick's one of those people that are aware of the Jamestown, California radio show and has not reached out for my services. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about his interview with the former president and what he just said, that within 24 hours of my last podcast proved exactly what I said by what the former president said, that I said identical. Number one, the former president is very selfish by wanting to be running again, knowing that the Biden administration is going to lose to no matter what Republican runs against him, as long as they're a legitimate candidate. Ron DeSantis of Florida is number one. Number two, Tim Scott. The fact that Tim Scott's a Black American would help the Republican Party with a super boost, getting new voters to register as Republicans and proving once and for all that we are the party of change, we are the party of tomorrow, and we are the party of diversity. Number two, the former president wanted to say whether he was going to come in and run before November's election or after November's election. And what's going to determine his decision is that he wants the credit. So what that means is exactly what I said about selfish, exactly what I said about the government wanting credit, ripping off ideas from others and not able to solve the three main issues: housing, crime, and the recession. They all work hand in hand. And then number four, medical insurance for all Americans. And they're not able to do it. And what they're doing is, while the medical insurance to qualify for the government, it's at a mere $1,500. If you go over that number, you lose your medical insurance. The doctors are already trying to get people not to use prescription drugs because, number one, there's a shortage, and number two, they don't want to pay for it for middle-aged Americans. I've been noticing that the last 3 months that the doctors have completely changed by the way they're talking to us on basic visits. The last doctor didn't even check my chart, didn't even have my chart for the last visit, and just came in there with an arsenal of what he thinks is good or not good for my body. So I'm going to go back to the former president right now. The former president was not able to solve housing. In fact, during his administration, very quietly, all the cities have been building this new construction to squeeze in upper middle class people, and they're not putting in any rentals for people to rent at a $1,200 to $1,700 for working class people. There's two forms of housing. There's one for the working class, and then there's two for the people that are actually on the street that need rehabilitation. That's a 33% right there. The other 33% are the ones on drugs, and they're the ones that need extra attention versus putting us all in the same basket whenever we need to move and make a phone call to go one place to another. During COVID, the former president was not able to put a housing team together to solve this problem, and that's why we're in recession today. Because the new administration has doubled down on the old policy, continuing the new construction, and there's been no mercy, city by city, buying up areas that could be and should be for affordable housing, so those local economies can have people moving into their cities and working in their cities. Instead, it's all upper class, expensive $2,500 to $3,500 a month rentals, and I don't know what kind of jobs these people are doing that they're actually getting paid 3 times the amount that they first qualify, and second are even worth that kind of money when, unless they're trading, I just don't see what kind of business or work that they're doing to be able to fill in all those new properties without bringing in people from the outside. And that's the plan. Bringing in people from the outside. They're already progressively at war while they're at war with the middle class of the American people, while they squeeze us out and the real war goes on. The after war or post-war, people will waltz right in here like Mike Waltz and just qualify by force. Number 2, the former president, when you said that you want the credit, whether you're going to come back to the arena before or after the elections of November for the midterms, was definitely the most selfish thing not only anyone in the world could have said, but I'd like to thank you for proving my point that you're not you're a selfish human being. That's the bottom line. Number 1, you still have not given up the idea that the election was stolen, and you're not electable, in my opinion. Now, my opinion can be worth nothing to Clay, nothing to Charlie, and nothing to other people. And you guys could ride the Donald Trump train, and he might win if you guys are willing to put in a certain amount of money. But in my opinion, it's not worth the investment. It's better to invest that money in Ron DeSantis, Tim Scott, or any other Republican to win the nomination for Republican, because that would even the playing field from the 81-74 million mark more to a 77-76. You're going to barely win the election if you do hold the election. The fact that the former president is coming in here for just being selfish is something that the Republicans need to look at. Whether the January 6th committee is legit or not legit, whether they come up with findings or the DOJ is a Stalin list kind of committee, that is a separate issue. The fact is, the former president just admitted that he was selfish, and I, in 24 hours of my podcast, proved it by his own words, is something the Republicans need to look at. Look, Mr. President, you said that you're winning in all the polls. We are aware of that. I reported that yesterday. That doesn't give you the right, just because you're winning in all the polls and your polls have never been better, that the rest of your supporters are equally as selfish voting for you, knowing what occurred during your administration. The economy was good, but you were not able to solve housing at all. The only reason why the economy was good was because gas in California was $2.78 a gallon, and during that 2017 small recession, we were able to work through it. We were able to live in a place that would not be our first choice, but we're forced to live with other people, and that's the reason why you haven't been able to solve housing. I shouldn't have to go on a Craigslist and go live in a house with 7 people while one gets COVID. I should be able to live in a place where there's just one other person, and there is no options for me as not a middle class person anymore, a former homeowner. I was squeezed out of the market in 2008 before the crash. I sold before the crash. But Mr. President or former president, I really want you to consider your selfishness. If you guys at the network think that because I'm not a famous person, one of the reasons why I'm not a famous person is I chose regular work and not to go and work at certain places to not be a famous person while my projects were still pending and in its processing format. So what that means is I didn't care or think that it was that important to go be a famous person in order to sell books. Until recently, I didn't realize that was one of the criterias. Number 2, Charlie Kirk. You're straight up lying or misinforming the American people about your new book. Something I wouldn't say that you plagiarized from material from the State of the Union, but I wrote about not having to go to college, or you're going to go to college and then go and work at other jobs. I printed that somewhere. Now, I can't tell you where I have it, but I do believe I did save that material. It's in one of the 3 books. It's mentioned. It might have been on the website Jamestown, Calif, before I took it down when I was getting 4,000 hits a day. So I'm not going to accuse you of ripping off material from my pages on that idea. But what I will say is this. You're wrong that people should not be going to college or universities. I can't tell you how many jobs that I might have gotten if I did finish college. Not finishing college or being 2 or 3 years out of the 4 years shows that you either dropped out, quit, or didn't have the money to finish. Or some people might even think you were lazy. In my case, I wanted to change majors from basic information and education to straight up journalism and newspaper production and sports broadcasting and radio broadcasting. I did them all. In fact, I still have my pending credits to finish, but I have not finished. And because I have not finished, I have not gotten a job with any network, because all the big networks require you to finish school. All of them. They recruit from that class of a graduating class. Charlie, you're wrong. I want to know why you're printing that information. Yes, a lot of people go to college and then when they're done, they go and work at something else. That's because the media has changed. Social media has changed since JamestownCalif.com before Twitter. Now that there's Twitter and other networks, it's changed the way advertising and marketing has gone. What I do recommend is this. For all people at 18 and 19 years old going out of high school, finish your 4-year college as soon as you can. Don't listen to what Charlie Kirk has to say on that. Finish school, but you don't have to go to Yale or Harvard. Find another school. Find a school that's less expensive, 2 years junior college, Then you can go to Cal State and wrap it up there at Cal State Berkeley on your 4-year and start with your general education. Then you can work in the marketplace, and then 5, 10, even 15, when you're 40 years old, you can always go back to college and start over or build on your credits. So Charlie, I don't know if you're saying this because you're aware that the spaces are all being taken. And I did say in my last take that the right is breaking up because the left is breaking up. What's happening is the right, wealthy Donald Trump supporters are trying to break up from the ordinary middle class because you're famous and we're not. That's the bottom line. So how are you going to win the election versus Joe Biden if you do lead in all the polls and do have more than any Republican votes? In my opinion, if it goes 81-74 last time, what makes you think you're going to win this time? I would say that number goes from 83 to 69 if Donald Trump runs. Number one, more people will start registering Democrat just out of dislike for Donald Trump. That's the number one reason why he's not electable. Number two, you already see the Democrats breaking up. They're going to find another candidate by 2024, but they don't want to look like they're pushing out the president. And they want to push out the president, but they don't want to do it to where it's illegal. And it looks really borderline right now. So versus the president criticizing a sick man who's maybe going to resign anyway, I want the president and Outkick to consider that you're not the voice of the media. I want to say that Twitter is not the big giant in social media like Elon Musk was about to buy it for $44 billion. There are other networks that people are getting their information, such as TikTok. And as long as TikTok's around and people have no ability to do anything about it, they're going to be on the Democratic side more. And the more the president or the former president wants to resign or run and be selfish and say, I want the credit. He wants the credit because if he joins first and the House gets more seats, he could say it's because of him. That's what he's trying to do. If that's not the most selfish thing ever, then tell me what's more selfish. Or I should do it after and just wait and see. No, sir, you shouldn't run at all. That's the bottom line. You should forfeit that. And you should not run as an independent and be more selfish. Allow Ron, Tim, or Mike to put together an administration similar to your administration with some of the same people. You had good people on your team. This is what bothers me so much about the former president and his selfishness. He knows that he might not win, but he wants to run anyway just to say that he was right, that the election was or was not stolen. And that's very, very important. Outkick with Clay Travis did an interview right now with the former president of the United States, Donald Trump. Your supporters, Mr. Former President, should go automatically to Mike Pence without dispute, without question, or to Ron, or to Tim, or all three of them could work together. They could run together and then say, well, at the end of our winning, I'm still going to have the other guys on my administration with Larry Kudlow while Neil Cavuto farts during breaks at Fox News. That's what's happening. I want to start off by saying that I am the king of all media. I always have been when it comes to the websites and all the news that I beat you guys to the punch. I'm not going to let you beat me to the punch this time. If you want to ride with the former president, you're going to lose. If you don't think you're going to lose, well, this is the test right here. Whether I become famous or not famous in between now and the 24 election, I do have material that I'm producing that's not news related. And whether people help me or don't help me, I'm going to help myself as much as I can and work as hard as I can to earn as much money as I can during this recession so I could get to that point. I'm not going to allow people to steal my ideas. You're already slowing down the process by not helping me and getting the process together with the science fiction books. Some of that stuff is actually happening right now, similar to the books that I'm producing right now. And that's what's happening. There is something that is out of this world. The former president did not disclosure. He did not open it up. He did let them start the process, and he's allowed the Supreme Court justices to be where they're at. He did a great job on certain issues. I'd like to thank the former president for serving and his team. But in all due respect, sir, I don't think it's fair, and I think it's selfish to the other Republican candidates knowing that you want to release when you're going to run based on before or after the November elections because you want to have a certain influence or take the credit. And that's selfish. I'm going to go inside of Denny's and go have some dinner. I'd like to thank you all for listening to this podcast on youtube.com, Jamestown, California. And I'm going to try to figure out how to work on Instagram more on Jamestown, California. I want to say that the big weights on social media are Instagram and TikTok. Twitter is no longer the giant. Twitter had an opportunity to become the best thing for news, but Twitter also was selfish. It was also the way bias, and it also, when they flag you, they need to give a reason why they're flagging you. They need to say, well, you said this on this take or wrote this, because I noticed Twitter is flooded with people who do not want to participate in news. Now, those comments that people want to write, that's fine. The conversation is always good, whether people want to say it nicely or not nicely. That's why we're all Americans. But when Twitter wants to be the censor or YouTube and decide, hey, this is not appropriate, they need to give a reason why it's flagged. And that's why you're no longer the giant. You did not reach out to the Jamestown, California show and say, hey, come to our office, fill out an application, and let's see how we could make money together because your website's strong and there's a lot of possibilities for your website. Instead, all the people that are dislikers are trying to figure out ways how to steal my radio show or how to criticize me for a take that I criticize or say something about one of their people. It's ridiculous. The former president is being selfish by his antics and conversation on Outkick. And Outkick, Clay Travis, that was a very soft interview. If I was interviewing the former president, I would be interviewing him with some of these questions. But you didn't interview him with those questions because you only wanted to get that part out and not the other part. That's the difference between a journalist and a famous person just putting up a website. When you get mad that I criticize Tommy Lauren and you go and promote her that same day, today your journalism skills showed. Straight up. It's not being a dick, but that's what happened today. Your interview with the former president did not ask him, why are you being so selfish? You want him to run. That's fine. Your cult or crew want him to run. And that's what they're calling you, as a cult. You're not electable. And the supporters that support the former president, the fact he still has not apologized for the Kung Flu statements, he still has not taken responsibility for slowing down testing in the very beginning. You guys, those were 2 grounds of impeachment that the big media straight up neglected. Charlie Kirk, you didn't even mention it. Well, you're too busy writing a book for 3 years researching why college students shouldn't go to school. Well, you're wrong, Charlie. You're trying to take the spaces because you have the money to compete with the people that are going to invade us anyway, because you're already aware you're going to lose. That's what's happening. That's why I don't think Nancy Pelosi should go to Taiwan. Any other time, I would be the first person to show strength and say, F those people, go. But in this case, we're just not strong like we used to be. And if you think we are, you're kidding yourself. Just like you're kidding yourself with the former president running again and it not being selfish. Clay, the former president should ask his supporters to go and endorse another candidate. But his supporters are also selfish. It shows that we have 74 million selfish people that are Republicans. That's the problem with the Republican Party. That's why R doesn't stand for Republican. It stands for recession. And the Biden administration, in a way, they knew this was coming, recession, at this time. And they didn't care. What they did was they doubled down on all the extra money that they could get through those cheap programs and stealing those spendings. None of it went to helping people with housing. None of it. Not a single dollar of $40 billion. It could have solved it with $2 billion in the whole United States. They don't want to solve it. In certain states, those are votes. In the other states, those are people that are not going to register. They're trying to take down the Republican Party because of Donald Trump by hurting the middle class, by forcing them to lose their earnings and become Democrats. Unless you're a super rich or famous person, you're not going to be a Republican in the future. This gap is going to go from 81 to 69, 83 to 67, 90 to 70 or to 60, unless we can get a candidate to even it out at 77, 76. And right now the Republicans have the opportunity to get that number equal. Remember, just because the president, his economy is a complete tank, he could still win the election. I know it sounds funny, but he could still win the election. And if you think that Donald Trump is the answer to that, you're wrong. You need to put someone who is diverse and someone that an ordinary person can relate to and trust. And at the same time, rebuild the military with a new force that we're able to hang and compete with the adversary. I know we could take down Russia, but we haven't shown any guts when it comes to them using weapons of mass destruction, not in the Syria campaign for 11 years and not in the Ukraine campaign. So what makes you think that if the CCP goes all out, that we're going to be able to match their force? Especially if everyone's on the same team, including people within our system. All on the same team. Otherwise, they wouldn't have this kind of power. They wouldn't be going on Twitter threatening us like that. That's because no one has the ability to have the brains because everyone is so selfish. The former president proved on Outkick, on Clay Travis's interview, just how selfish he personally is. He wants to announce him running again based on the elections coming up in November, knowing the Republicans are going to get seats anyway. I think the Republicans should ask him not to run, because at least allow the November elections to run by themselves. But he wants credit. That's selfish. What do you need the credit for? There's no reason for you to have the credit if it's doing it on its own. See, what I did was the best thing to do when there's recessionary issues. I did nothing. I just did nothing for 2-3 weeks. And now I'm able to do something. New opportunities. 3 weeks went by. Sometimes doing nothing is better That's part of the American dream. I know it sounds funny, but when you're in a certain position, whether you're in an upper class, the President of the United States, Charlie Kirk, sometimes it's better to do nothing. And I don't recommend you endorsing the former president. I like Charlie Kirk. I don't agree with your book, but I still like you. And I like your group and other groups. But I think it's important to really look at this. Is the former president electable? And in my opinion, the answer is no. He's not electable in a national election. Maybe consider running for a senator in a state or a governor. You would win. That wouldn't be so selfish. Maybe run in California and challenge Gavin Newsom if you really think that you're that good. Show us how good you are. I'm showing you how good I am. Opportunity or no opportunity, we have opened the social media sites where now my voice can be heard as long as I don't get censored and I keep it under, I don't go all out like my rock show, playing the hardest of the hard rock. I want to start off by saying that I want to thank everyone for listening to my rock show. The rock show starts when your news broadcast starts. Special report at 3, Fox News at night, 9 o'clock p.m. Pacific time. I start the show at 9 o'clock or at 3 o'clock with a television show for the music to get me ready to put my songs together by 9:05. And then I start playing my rock show while you're broadcasting the news. Sometimes I'll play my own show, the songs I want to play in a certain format. And sometimes I'm literally just picking songs from the guests that are up there with their names, words, letters, and I figure out a group. Like I'll give you an example. Adam Carolla on the Sean Hannity show. His song is Shiny Toy Guns. Why toy? Because toy is short for Toyota Corolla. So those are the reasons. I have every person and every guest have their songs. Dr. Siegel, you have multiple groups. You have the Eagles and a flock of seagulls. So when you're on, I could play I Ran from a Flock of Seagulls or Wishing or Space Age Love Song, or I could play the Eagles, New Kid in Town. So every guest, Clay, you have songs too. When you go up, I play Randy Travis. I like Randy Travis. Clay Travis, Randy Travis. Do you guys understand the show a little bit better? I think I've explained it a few times, but no one's taking it seriously. No one does an MTV like that on any network. I tried to do it with CNBC, and I was able to do it with their guests. I just want to let you know that I can go and watch another show and do the same thing. The only difference is your show and your guests have funny names, like Chip Roy. He goes up, I play the television show Chips. So it says Chip, Chips. And that's the whole thing, that you put the cell phone or the video while next to the television while you're talking. That makes me laugh. And then the song You Go, then Stephen Miller comes up. Stephen Miller spells his name with a PH. Steve Miller Band, Abracadabra. That's his song. There's other songs by the Steve Miller Band I could plug in. No one could work that many hours during all your shows and pick songs out of the blue right now in the United States. No one. Not one person. If there's a person that could do it with hip-hop and R&B, that guy will do well. But I just don't see the names coinciding with the broadcast. They could put a show together and it would be good. I could do it. But there's just so much language in those songs that ruin my show when I try to do it. So I just don't do it no more. I do have on my computer some of the nastiest of the nasty hip hop that if I were playing at midnight at a club, people would be dancing, shaking their booty. But I'm not playing it online. And I want to start off by thanking everyone for listening to this podcast and especially my radio show. If you're interested in promoting the radio show, you can email me at michaeljamesonOC@gmail.com. I'd like to thank you all for listening.